Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel, representing Brit-Am, Hebrew awareness. We wish to explain to you certain aspects of Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog are forces who will come against the people of Israel in the end times. They will fight against the people of Israel. They will fight against the 10 tribes from Judah who will have been regathered, will have come together. Gog and Magog, the forces of Gog and Magog are spoken about in the book of Ezekiel, in the last chapters, especially in chapter 38, 39. And Gog and Magog, in the overall scenario of the prophets, as we understand them, as they may be understood, that in the end times, the lost 10 tribes will experience a renewal, a resurgence of power, and become aware of their ancestry. They will encounter tribulations and disasters and experience events that will cause them to return, to repent, and to seek the Lord their God. And they will be led by a messianic figure known as the Messiah, son of Joseph. This is not the Messiah, son of David. This is the Messiah, son of Joseph. He's a member of the lost 10 tribes. And he will initiate, he will come before the Messiah, son of David. And the Messiah, son of Joseph, shall lead the 10 tribes, and he will help them resist their adversaries and overcome their enemies and save them. And he will bring them back, and he will cause them to want to return and to reunite with Judah, and to return at least in part to the Holy Land, to the land of Israel. And they will do so. And according to different sources, they will also rebuild the temple. And they will reunite, and then the Messiah, son of David, will appear, and he will complete the process of bringing the 10 tribes back. 10 tribes will reunite with Judah, and they will control the land of Israel, the greater land of Israel, from the Nile and to the Euphrates and beyond, and they will divide this land up amongst the tribes. Also, the 10 tribes who return will retain a connection with the lands they came from, and those areas will also be considered part of the land of Israel and be reincorporated in it, and in a spiritual sense become part of it. The holiness of the land of Israel will spread to them. And at some stage after this, whilst this whole process is getting along, Gog and Magog will come along. Gog and Magog representing all the nations of the earth, all the heathens of the earth, all the pagan, non-Israelite elements will get together and come up against the people of Israel and try to destroy them. And there will be wars. And Gog and Magog will be defeated. And Ezekiel lists a great number of people in this confederation who will attack Israel. See Ezekiel 38. We'll read it out and we'll come back to it and explain a little bit about it. Ezekiel 38:1. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Magog, of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out with all your army, horses and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya are with them. All of them, with a shield and helmet. Gomer and all its troops, the house of Gomer from the far north, and all its troops. Many people are with you. Now this will happen in the end times. When it will happen, we cannot say. No one really knows, but it could be close. Well, it may not be. But nevertheless, there are indications that we may well be much closer than we would think. And we'll explain shortly. First of all, we should know something about the nature of prophecy in general, So how we see prophecy? We see prophecy as existing at different levels. Moses, for instance, was the greatest of all the prophets, and he spoke to God directly, face to face, it says. And the other prophets experienced the prophetic experience in a much more diminished form. And often they would prepare themselves to receive prophecy, go through certain processes and prepare themselves. One of the ways they would prepare themselves was look at some particular object, or contemplate on the things that were going on around them, and extrapolate from what they saw into the distant future. So the prophecy will always have something of the elements of the reality that they themselves were experiencing. For instance, if they speak of chariots, so they would be referring to tanks, because they had no word for tanks, and they may not even have been able to really understand what tanks were, but chariots they knew. And what they saw, the closest thing to what they saw were chariots, and they speak of chariots. And so that is the way it goes all along. We also should realize that most of the prophets spoke during the period of the great empires of the past, of Assyria, of Babylonia, of Persia. Whilst these entities were fighting against each other, conquering each other, replacing each other, intermerging with one another, also encountering the Israelites, also interacting with them. So the prophets spoke of these great kingdoms, and from these great kingdoms emerged the present day world that we live in. Directly, indirectly, our world is an extension of theirs, of what they were. So the prophets spoke of our world in terms of theirs, in terms of what they saw. And eventually it spirals out, and then comes back to the source, as if to say. What I mean is that it's as if to say cyclical, it goes in cycles. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to 1, and then on again. And each time a spiral repetition with different players or variations. It repeats itself until finally it gets down to the ultimate eventuality, which is what the prophets spoke of, referred to. And this ultimate eventuality, it replays itself throughout history, over and over again, but each time getting closer and closer to the eventual finale. Since it's an ongoing rehearsal of a play, till the final, first ultimate performance is at the end. But the closer it gets to the end, each repetition is more like what it will be in the end time. So we are seeing something now, what may well develop into an end time eventuality. And where do we see this? So we may be seeing this in Ukraine now. In Ukraine is a state comprised of Slavic-speaking peoples related to the Russians and to the Polish peoples and other peoples in that area, related in different ways, racially, linguistically, culturally. They're all a mixture of different peoples, as are most peoples, but they have their own individuality. So now Russia and Ukraine are at war. They are arguing or contesting areas ruled over by the Ukraine, but historically part of Russia, populated by people of Russian descent, who speak Russian, at least in part, and also Ukraine comprises a strategic and economic threat on Russia itself, on the very existence of Russia, and Ukraine, to some degree, is acting as a puppet, as a tool in the hands of Germany, in the hands of European countries to the west of it. Now, recently we saw a program on a news program, a news commentary, in which it was a discussion, and two of the participants were the IDF General Yitzhak Brick and IDF General Gershon HaKohen, and the moderator was a news personality known as Elazar Sturm, and they gave insights that they gained from what was happening. And according to them, when the conflict broke out, the USA considered the option. The USA is against it. It was against Russia expanding at the expense of the Ukraine, and they considered the option of using NATO forces, that is European forces, to help Ukraine against Russia. But instead it decided, at least for the time being, to use other means to support the Ukraine, such as advanced information processing, cyber resources, state-of-the-art analysis, a myriad facts to a degree and an intensity, and a level, a quality that only a world superpower is capable of supplying. And the Ukraine received from the CIA the military plans of Russia. It knows what Russia is going to do. That is how it is able to avoid steps to counter the intentions of Russia. Ukraine also benefits from moral support, financial backing, not only from the USA but also from all over Europe, and advanced weaponry, including that supplied by US allies outside of Europe, such as South Korea. On the other hand, Russia also receives support. Russia is helped by Iran. Iran gives Russia drones, military equipment, potential personnel, and also Russia receives help from China, at least for the moment. China, at least for the moment, is helping to sustain Russia. And there's a danger that Russia will be pressured to use nuclear weapons. So we wait and see. This is the situation at present. We ourselves do not think that a world war will develop from this, but it might do. Should never say no. Never say no to the good, never say no to the bad. This is, we have to keep our eyes open and be aware. So how does this fit into what we were saying concerning the ultimate finale of the wars of Gog and Magog as prophesied? So we should note that in the past there were rabbis or other sages who considered the events that were taking place to be the wars of Gog and Magog. Well, those who considered the Napoleonic wars, the wars of Napoleon, who attempted to conquer Russia, took most of Europe, conquered a good portion of Europe, amalgamated European states into one large federation, and with the help of German states such as Bavaria and others, he attacked Russia in 1799, 1815 for the Napoleonic Wars, and they eventually was defeated. But it was a period when it looked as if he might well be successful. After that we had World War I, which was the wars of Germany, Austria, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and Turkey, the Ottoman Turkish Empire, against the West and against Russia. Then in World War II we had Japan, and this empire, we had Japan and the Japanese Empire, and then we had the Nazis and Germany and Austria together, and a good portion of European fascists throughout Europe also helped Germany. They conquered most of Europe except for Britain, and they also attacked Russia. And also there was stages in this conflict where it looked like Germany had the upper hand. One stage Britain was alone in defying and resisting the German aggression. Germany, the Nazis in Germany also had the alliance of Italy and others. And they were there, those two. I met one, a rabbi who was once a teacher of mine, and he was quite a learned person. And he believed that World War II had been the war of Gog and Magog. So we have opinions, and they had something to base themselves upon in these opinions. But in our opinion, they were wrong. And so too, we're not present. This is not the war of Gog and Magog, but it is a rehearsal for it. And the players, what is interesting, the players in the present conflict represent the personnel in the prophecy of Ezekiel. In the prophecy of Ezekiel, we're told that Gog and Magog and all his hosts will come up against Israel. And who has Gog and Magog? So Gog of the land of Magog, Gog historically apparently was a powerful kingdom in southern Russia and Central Asia, and there's also a related entity, possibly an offshoot of Gog or survival of Gog, that existed from 37 BCE, before the Common Era, to 668 CE, after the Common Era. That is quite a while. It was a powerful empire. It's known as Goguryeo, also Goryeo, and in the sources also known as Gog. Gog was a name actually given to it. In non-Jewish and non-Christian sources, that was a name, one of its names was Gog. And this empire of Gog was centered in Korea, northern and central parts of Korea, and also in the southern and central parts of China, also Mongolia, Manchuria, and related neighboring areas. It may also have ruled over Japan. It was quite a large entity and quite a powerful state. And it was known as Gog. It's worth noting that the Japanese are people, according to DNA, for what it's worth, the Japanese are people that are related to the Koreans and to the natives of Tibet, both of which peoples were parts of the empire of Gog. So Gog of the land of Magog, Magog is usually taken to refer to the Mongolians. Mongolians are identified with Magog. A Jewish sage, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, 1720 to 1797, identified Gog with the southern Germans, not the northern Germans, whom he identified with Gomer, but the southern Germans and other Europeans he identified with Magog. Rosh, we're told of Rosh. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh. Who is Rosh? Rosh is another way of pronouncing Rus, Russia. Russia is expressly named in this prophecy. Meshech. Meshech also refers to areas of Russia. The people of Meshech gave their name to Moscow. Moscow, the capital of Russia, an important entity historically in its own right. There's also an ancient people known as Moshki in western Anatolia, that is the western part of Anatolia, of Turkey, the non-European part of Turkey known as Anatolia. There was a people known as Moshki, an important people often identified with the Phrygians, a powerful empire in that area. And also Tubal. Tubal is mentioned in the prophecy of Gog and Magog as amongst the forces of Gog and Magog. This is the prince of Russia, that is Russia, Meshech, that is Moscow, and Tubal. So who was Tubal? Tubal, according to researcher H.H., who for reasons of his own prefers not to be mentioned by name, he draws attention, as others have also, to areas in Russia with similar names to this, to Bulius Mountain in the Caucasus, Tbilisi in Siberia, and the city of Tobolsk by the Tobol River east of the Ural Mountains. All are named after a people known as Tubal. In addition to that, there were classical commentaries who identified Tubal with Spain, and it's been suggested, also by H.H., but possibly also by others, that the Basques of northern Spain on the border between Spain and France, people known as the Basques, who are different from the rest of the peoples around them, and they have a unique dialect of their own, which is similar to languages spoken in the Caucasus Mountains. So there may be a connection. So it has been suggested that when the classical commentators identified Tubal with Spain, they were referring to the Basques, who were nation people and had been in Spain from a very early age. And then we have Persia. Persia is also in the forces of Gog and Magog. And who is Persia? Persia is Iran. Persia was always known as Persia, that was its name. But when the Nazis came to power and started exerting their influence over the Middle East and over areas in that region, gain influence and gain allies in their war against the West, they persuaded the ruler of Persia to change the name of Persia to Iran, meaning Aryan, or something similar, which they claimed was the ancient name of the Persians, and it reflected the Aryan origin, that is their racial affinity with the peoples the Nazis believed themselves to belong to. And then Ethiopia, but Ethiopia in Hebrew is, the word translated as Ethiopia, in the original Hebrew is Cush. Now Cush can mean Ethiopia. Cush is another name used for Ethiopia, also for other parts of Africa. The name is also applied to India, especially in Aramaic translations of the Bible. We often find the word Cush translated as Hodu, Hodu meaning India. India in the classical sense. India in the classical sense included Bangladesh of today, all of India, all of the area around it, and also all of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and reaching into Central Asia right up to the Caspian Sea. That is also referred to in a geographical terminology as Kush, or even as India in classical sources. Another element associated with Gog and Magog is translated as Libya, in Hebrew, Luv, the V and the V interchange in Hebrew. Libya was a name applied to Africa in general, especially the northern part of Africa. Libya is also the name of a country today in northern Africa, a country where they sell slaves in open markets. Libya may also apply to Afghanistan, and the Afghans incidentally have several foundational mythologies. They believe they descended from everyone, and one of these versions that might have something to it say that they descend from northern African Berbers who were brought there in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Another force mentioned in the prophecy of Ezekiel refers to Gomer. Gomer and all its troops. And the prophecy of Ezekiel refers to Gomer and all its troops. Gomer was the son of Japheth, who had the first man who gave rise to humanity as we know it today was Noah. First there was Adam and Eve, and then they had people, and then the whole of the earth was destroyed, and only Noah and his family survived. And one of the sons of Noah was Japheth, and one of the sons of Japheth was Gomer. And Gomer gave rise to three different peoples: Ashkenaz, Rifat, and Togarmah. And Gomer is often taken to refer to the Germanic, northern peoples, and also to part of the Celtic peoples of Western Europe and of Central Europe. Gomer is also the name of the prophet Hosea. as mentioned, as already described in the book of Hosea, the three children of Gomer that Hosea, the prophet Hosea, begat from Gomer, his wife, were given names, and these represent the lost 10 tribes in exile. Each of the three names representing different sections of the 10 tribes. And apparently the 10 tribes in their places of exile had amalgamated, federated with non-Israelite nations represented by Gomer and become part of them, federated with them for a good portion of their early history, received linguistic and cultural features from them, and then separated out from them. And this identification, this equation of ours is justified by historical researches that we have done, others also have done, and also that is confirmed by Rabbi Israel Alter, known as the Beis Israel, after this famous work. Rabbi Israel Alter, 1895 to 1977, who was the chief rabbi of the Hasidim of Gur. Gur is the name of Hasidic body, Hasidic sect, one could say, a division of the Hasidim, of the Hasidic Jews, was the largest of the Hasidim groups in Poland before the Second World War. And during the Second World War, a good portion of them were destroyed, wiped out by the Germans, and the remnant survived. And some of them came to Jerusalem, and their rabbi, the Rabbi Israel Alter, also went to Jerusalem, and he resurrected, he revived the group, and he brought it back together and put more life in it, and he made it up to a significant element in Judaism, and his followers continued in this path, and today is quite significant. And Rabbi Israel Alter, I met him for a few minutes when I was in Jerusalem, when I first came to Israel, and it had quite an impression on me. And his teachings have also helped us in our study of the lost 10 tribes, and he refers to the lost 10 tribes several times over in his books, and also he refers to Joseph and the significance of Joseph in the end times. So at all events, Gomer, the non-Israelite Gomer, will be part of the forces of Gog and Magog, who will come against the Israelites in the end times. Another group that will come against Israel is known as the House of Tor Gomer. Tor Gomer was the son of Gomer. An offshoot of Gomer, the House of Tor Gomer, will come from the far north. And Tor Gomer often equated, both in Jewish and non-Jewish sources, early sources, with the Turkey and Turkish-speaking peoples in Central Asia. And they are the main forces that will come against Israel in the end times. As we said, this is Gog and Magog, Rosh, Meshech, Tubal, Persia, Kush, that is India, Libya, that is possibly Afghanistan, Gomer and all its troops, that is both Asiatic and European peoples, so will all get together and come against the state of Israel. And they will include the Turkish people and offshoots of the Turks. And Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish and all their young lions will be associated with them, but not necessarily in their military forces, but as elements that provide them with economic and mercantile support. And historically, this could refer to Portugal, to Spain, and to Latin America. And they will wish to partake in dividing up the spoil and inheriting some of the wealth of the Israelite nations, if and when Gog and Magog succeed in destroying the Israelites. And it says, Ezekiel quotes them as saying, they will say to Gog and Magog, have you come to take plunder? Have you loot, that is booty, loot? Have you gathered your army to take booty, to carry away silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, to take great plunder, to take from all the bounty and riches? That the 10 tribes and the Jews at that time will have accumulated. And how does this get us back to the present time? So the Ukrainian-Russian conflict involves most of the nations that we are speaking of. It is in their area, taking place in their area, and the nations around who are allied either with the Ukraine or with Russia are all the players that we have mentioned. In other words, they may well come together, resolve their conflict, come together and become a force with all of the participants in their original formation lined up. That is, we're getting closer and closer to how it was predicted would happen in its ultimate way. So that indicates that we're getting closer to the end time scenario, and we should wake up and take notice. We should notice that already these alignments are taking effect. For instance, India. We have India. India is now neutral in the conflict, but is actually helping Russia. It has abstained from votes in the UN against Russia, and in a way it is cooperating with Russia, even though it might seem in their interest to back the USA and not Russia. They are not doing that. India seems to be reserved concerning the USA and more closer to Russia in its basic psychological inclinations. Should note that both India and Brazil are members of BRICS, members of several organizations such as BRICS, G20, MC and G4. And these organizations have the same players or the same associates in them. For instance, BRIC is an association of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. And also have G20. G20 also comprises the EU and BRICS together, and they seek to control international finance, climate change mitigation and the sustained development apart from the USA, divorced from the USA, without US influence. They're basically against the USA, fooling around with each other in some way to work together to undermine the USA and aggrandize themselves at the same time. So this ties in with what we were saying. We have India and Brazil, that is India, Kush, and Brazil, that is Sheba Dedan, that is Sheba Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish getting together in South of Latin America, headed by Brazil. Also we have Kush, Kush meaning India, or can also refer to Africa, so we have elements from South Africa aligned with them, working together with them. And these are not speculations, these are things you can read about them in the news. They are onward going, they are progressing, they are openly declaring their attention. They're openly declaring their intentions, but we are being ordinary mortal people and having other things to do, other interests to take off, other matters that concern us. We'd rather not hear about it because it takes away from the limited energy and attention span that we have, that we've already dedicated to other subjects. So notice these other forces exist and may well become of importance in the future. So that is what there is, and there's more to say about this, but the most important thing is to believe in God Almighty, to believe in the Bible, to understand who the 10 tribes are, to learn about it, research it, to pay heed to it, and to help us promote this message, because this message also is important, and not that many people hear of it. No, of those people who hear of it, not that many people actually agree with it or even like it. Some people even dislike us. And of those few who hear of it, like it, agree with it, not that many have the means to support us, or not to support us to to support us to a large degree. So that means that when you get down to the who is who and what is what, the support is quite limited. This support is needed by us to continue to function and to spread the message. So take this to heart, and if you feel challenged about it, not certain about it, research it more, hear more of it, and may the Lord God of Israel guide all of us.